morning, welcome to CATEX TV. My name is Frank Fortunato. Today is Tuesday, September 29, 2015. If you want to follow us on Twitter, please go to CATEX TV. There's a tropical storm called Tropical Storm Joaquin. It's located north of the Bahamas. It's got wind speeds of about 40 miles per hour, but it's making its way northwest. It's expected to be a big rainmaker for the Mid-Atlantic and North Mid-Atlantic region beginning this evening and lasting through Sunday. It'll be 5 days of heavy rain in an area that's been drought-stricken. Meanwhile, yesterday at the UN, after a day of cross-sword speeches between President Obama and President Putin over positions regarding Syria, as well as a very, very uncomfortable toast where both men were sitting at the same table at a UN lunch, the two men apparently met. The meeting went on for 90 minutes. It was supposed to be only 60 minutes. Following the meeting, President Putin said, "We have many things in common. We're actually very much alike." Goodness knows what that might mean. Meanwhile, in Taiwan and in southwest China, Typhoon Dujuan, which is a super typhoon, has now made landfall in East China's Fujian province. This was this morning. It is packing winds of about 150 miles per hour. 32,000 fishing boats have been recalled. More than 370,000 families have suffered a blackout as of 6 a.m. this morning. 103 flights have been canceled in Fuzhou and Xinjiang. Yesterday in Taiwan, heavy rain and powerful winds ended up killing 3 people and injuring over 300. More than 25 inches of rain fell in 36 hours in New Taipei City in the northern part of the island. The storm knocked out power to at least 500,000 households, as well as the water supply being knocked out to over 200,000. Classes and schools and work were canceled throughout the island. Also, interestingly enough, Bon Jovi concerts scheduled for Monday and Tuesday night were also called off. In Lloyds, ANV Syndicate, which is owned by the Ontario Teachers Pension Fund, announced that it has to contribute more to become compliant with the reserve requirements because they're non-compliant with Solvency II. This is because of the high acquisition cost of its core consumer products business. Translation, they have to pay a lot of money to brokers in order to produce that business. There had been some discussion that the amount that they would have to front load in might be as high as £5 million. However, it was only £2.5 million. Japanese Big Three insurer Sompo Japan Nipponkoa is heading for possibly a $60 million claims dispute regarding the explosion at the Chinese port of Tianjin. This is according to the Insurance Insider. The company is the sole insurer of 3,000 Renault cars that were in the exclusion zone. It's understood that Sompo believed that most of the exposure had been handed off to reinsurers under a so-called fact reporter clause in the marine policy. That clause requires the insurer to report the details of the cars, and apparently they did not. XL Catlin is believed to be the lead reinsurer on the policy, and because Sompo did not report the cars in accordance with the provision of the policy, it might not be able to secure a payout. The Sompo marine claim is one of the few written loss notifications to reach the reinsurance market from the Tianjin blast. This is now some 30 or so days after the explosion. Damaged and contaminated cars look to be the biggest component of the loss, or one of them anyway, in the port of Tianjin. Satellite photos are saying that some 54,000 vehicles might be affected. According to Carpenter, if that's the case, if they're all totally written off, it could be as high as a $1.4 billion loss. We're now beginning to see some clear details as to the brands of cars that Volkswagen manufactures that might have had, in fact do have, the so-called defeat software placed in them. This is the software that is at the root of the scandal that turns off the emission control system after the test is concluded. Volkswagen total is some 11 million diesel engines. Volkswagen's proper are 5 million of that total. Audi is 2.1 million. Skoda 1.2 million. Seat, which is Volkswagen's Spanish manufacturing arm, has some 700,000 cars, and there are about 1.8 million vans involved as well. German prosecutors announced yesterday that they're conducting a criminal investigation of Volkswagen's former chief executive officer, Martin Winterkorn. Well, one would have thought that the PartnerRe-Exor deal has gone through. They've named a new CEO, Emmanuel Clark. However, the deal is not quite yet final. PartnerRe shareholders are going to vote on the final aspects of the deal at a general shareholder meeting on November 19th. At the beginning of August, PartnerRe abandoned its deal with Axis and agreed to be acquired by Exor for $6.9 billion, but part of the agreement had a go shop provision in which Exor told PartnerRe, go out and find a better deal if you can. PartnerRe apparently had approached 26 companies, identified as candidates that might be interested in buying them. 2 of them expressed some interest, but neither of those 2 even reached the signing of a confidentiality agreement stage. So it looks as if it's going to be Exor. That's hardly a news bulletin. Workers at Fiat Chrysler's Jefferson North Assembly plant in Detroit, one of the old Chrysler mainstays, have resoundingly rejected a 4-year agreement between the UAW and the car maker. This would be UAW Local 7. They make Jeep Grand Cherokee and Dodge Durango in the Detroit plant. The vote was the latest blow against the agreement that was hammered out earlier this month by Fiat Chrysler CEO Sergio Marchionne and the UAW president Dennis Williams. If this deal goes down, it means that the model agreement is going to be in jeopardy, and individual agreements are going to have to be negotiated then with Fiat Chrysler, Ford, and General Motors. So it could, in fact, lead to some substantial disruption in the auto market. Yesterday, we reported news of the resounding vote on Sunday in Catalonia, the region of northeastern Spain where Barcelona is, in which the regional parliament was essentially taken over by Catalonian separatists. Well, the Catalonian Supreme Court has indicted the acting head of the Catalan regional government today because he pushed ahead with a referendum on independence from Spain. This is despite the vote being ruled unconstitutional by the courts. He's been charged with civil disobedience, abuse of authority, and usurping authority. These charges were leveled at Artur Mas. He's the most visible face of the Catalan separatist movement. The Spanish premier, the Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy, has stuck to the letter of the law in these past years over growing support in Catalonia for independence. He has said that one part of Spain cannot vote to decide what to do in regards to removing itself from the rest of Spain. He's taking a hard line against this, and they're not going to be intimidated in Madrid, he said. So that's the story on that. We'll keep an eye on what's going on in the world. If there's any breaking news, we'll come back and tell you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.